Hello, my friend. Welcome to Dreamy Nights. I'm so glad you're here. Tonight, a gentle story waits one steeped in lamplight and the soft hush of midnight, where warmth lingers like the sweetness of bread and the quiet of moonlit streets. Let the day loosen its hold and drift to the edges, the way flower settles after a slow breath. Settle in, feel the evening grow tender, and allow the night to become a refuge of calm. When the world is ready to be quiet, the first scene opens like a door in soft light. A hush rests over the city, as if the rooftops themselves are exhaling. The air is cool and faintly sweet, carrying a trace of vanilla and something warm that seems to glow without flame. A single street lamp stands near the corner, shedding amber light across wet cobblestones, each stone reflecting a smeared ribbon of gold. Far away, the city hum is no more than the memory of sound, a distant current beneath the surface of night, steady, low, and kind. At the end of the narrow lane, the bakery leans into the lamplight as though listening. Its windows are fogged at the edges, each pane silvered with moisture, where inside warmth meets cool air. The glass holds soft halos of yellow, and behind it, there is the faintest movement, a drift of shadow, the slow arc of a hand, the patient rhythm of a room that is awake without urgency. The sign above the door, carved from old wood, creaks lightly in the breeze, a single note against the velvet quiet. The door itself is painted a gentle weathered blue. Under the lantern, it wears a powder of flower as though touched by snow from some kindly storm. When the breeze passes, the brass handle shivers with a tiny chime, a cool metal whisper that fades as quickly as it arrives. Through the seam at the sill, a hint of warmth steals out, mingling with the night and making the air feel softer, like a blanket around the shoulders. Inside, the light is low and loving. Lamps with frosted shades pool their glow across a tiled floor, the tiles warmed by years of footfall and the nearness of an oven's breath. Glass jars line the shelves, their curved sides catching glimmers of gold sugar like fine sand flour, like a pale drift of winter cocoa powder, dark as evening. The air carries a gentle bouquet, butter's round softness, a brush of cinnamon, a trace of yeast, rising and alive, each scent layered like silk on skin. At the counter, the baker's movements are unhurried and quiet. Linen sleeves whisper as they shift, and the soft thud of a wooden scoop touches the surface of flour. The scoop slides, the powder flows, and a small cloud rises in the beam of lamplight where dust motes drift like slow stars. The sound is gentle, a hush of grain, a faint rustle, and the bench below holds the memory of warmth, smooth beneath the palms, seasoned by years of patient work. From the back wall comes the soft tick of a clock, its face pale under shadow, its hands moving with the rhythm of a calm heartbeat. Each second is a small footstep into deeper quiet. Near it, the oven waits, its door closed, its interior breathing a low heat that seems to glow even when unseen. The metal gives off the faint scent of iron warmed by years of fire, and the stone within holds a steady warmth that feels older than the hour. A bowl rests on the counter, ceramic simple, a little chipped along the rim, where time has kissed it. Into this flower falls in a quiet mound. A pinch of salt scatters like fine snow. The baker tips a small pitcher and water slides out in a clear ribbon that glints under the light, cool and clean, a small river in a sleeping room. When liquid meets flour, the sound is not quite a sound, more a soft surrender, and the wooden spoon begins its circle, slow, assured, a steady orbit that gathers what is dry into what is wet until both become something new. The room keeps speaking in low voices, the linen towel breathing as it is lifted and folded, the faint brush of fingertips gathering stray flour into a gentle hill, the sigh of the ceiling vent turning once, then twice, then becoming still again. Yeast wakes with the quiet patience of sunrise. A different warmth blooms, not heat, but life, a subtle sweetness that rises like a whispered promise. The dough comes together under a calm hand, thickening, clinging, softening. When the spoon rests, the bowl holds a single luminous shape, pale and smooth as the moon seen through mist. The baker dusts the board with flour, a whisper across wood, and tips the dough into the center. It lands with a soft, rounded weight, and the board receives it like old friends meeting. Palms settle one, guiding, one folding. The dough yields and gathers the texture, springy and warm, a living thing that answers touch with gentle resistance. Each fold is a breath in and a breath out, a measured cadence that quiets the mind simply by existing. The room, attentive and kind, leans closer. The whisk on its hook gives a tiny tremble, then steadies. The glass jars hold their light. Their shadows lay long and delicate across the shelf. The low hum of the city becomes even softer, like a lullaby moving just beyond hearing. Somewhere in the alley, a cat pads along a brick wall and pauses, the soft press of paw against stone, leaving no sound at all. The baker shapes the dough into a round, turning it with a cup of the hands. The surface smooths under a faint dusting of flour. The seam is tucked and sealed, a small secret folded inward. When the round is placed into a waiting bowl lined with linen, the cloth embraces it. The fabrics weave, imprinting a memory the dough will keep. The bowl is set near the warm wall, where the oven's steady breath promises a gentle rise. A cover is laid over top, and the evening itself seems to settle with it, a soft acceptance that the next change will come in time. A second bowl, then a third, each with its own small world. One receives dough stippled with seeds that make a dry, friendly murmur against porcelain. Another carries a whisper of honey, a faint amber sweetness that clings to the spoon before sliding off in a thin thread. The scents mingle and drift, braided together yeast grain warmth and the hint of something caramel that waits quiet and patient in the future. The baker moves with ritual grace, cleaning as they go. A damp cloth crosses the bench in careful strokes, leaving a darker, cooler path that dries back to warm wood. A stray curl of lemon zest rests near the cutting board, bright and fragrant. It is scooped gently into a small dish, its oils perfuming the air with a clear, tender brightness. A jar lid is lifted and replaced. Glass kisses metal with a soft click. In this room, every small meeting of surface and hand is a word in a language of calm. Along the window, condensation collects in oval beads and slides down, tracing quiet paths. The street lamp outside sends a softened halo through the glass. The panes glow with a diffuse, buttery light. Across the room, a basket holds folded linen cloth, bright as cream edges, hemmed with fine stitches. When a towel is lifted, the fabric speaks in a faint cotton sigh, and the loop of thread at one corner is smooth and slightly cooler than the palm. Time passes, the way steam passes, visible for a moment, then part of the air. The clock ticks. The dough swells, subtly in the bowls, a slow motion one can nearly see. The baker stands still for a tender breath and listens. The silence here is never empty. It is filled with the smallest truths. Warmth against hands, the gentle scent of butter lingering from a memory of pastries, the faint minerality of stone tile cooling near the door. A kettle comes to a murmur on the back hob, the metal singing in a voice so quiet it seems to arrive from another room. When it is lifted, the handle warms the fingers through the cloth glove. Water pours into a waiting cup, where tea leaves unfurl like tiny scrolls, releasing a soft, earthy sweetness that floats through the bakery and settles near the window. Steam rises in a pale ribbon. It touches the face, then vanishes into the larger breadth of the room. The baker wraps both hands around the cup and stands near the proofing bowls, letting the heat soak into the skin. The tea smells of gentle fields and a small echo of citrus. Outside, the alley holds its calm. A late star appears above the roofline, steady and white, and the moon slides slowly into view, thin and watchful, its light, like cool silk, spread over the warm loaf of the night. Keyed. Hands return the cup to the counter. A bench scraper is lifted, its edge smooth and bright. The first dough, now risen, answers the touch with a soft sigh, deflating just enough to begin again. The dough is tipped out, divided with quiet strokes, and shaped into ovals that rest like sleeping birds on the floured board. The scent deepens as fermentation speaks a ripe, tender whisper of grain becoming bread. Trays are prepared with parchment, the paper making a crisp, pleasant rustle that feels like the sound of gentle pages turning. Each shaped loaf is laid onto the paper and space is left between them, the way space is left between thoughts. A brush carries a sheen of water across a braid. Seeds fall with a sound like rain on cloth. The baker's breath stays even. The oven's stone waits warm and constant. The hidden heart of the room. A small lame, the blade delicate and thin, glides across the top of a round. The cut is not deep, only enough to guide what will open when the heat speaks. The pattern is simple, a leaf, a crescent, a single line curved like the horizon of a quiet sea. Flour dusts the surface in a pale veil, and on the blade's path, the wet dough glows slightly darker, ready to become gold. The oven door opens with a soft exhale, and warm air billows out, fragrant and enveloping, carrying with it the faint sweetness of the stone and the accumulated kindness of many loaves. The baker slides the tray in. Metal touches metal with a muted, friendly knock. Steam is added in a brief, tender cloud that kisses the crust into shine. The door closes and the warmth hums anew, barely audible like a hand, resting against the back of the room. For a moment, nothing moves. Then time resumes its gentle measure. The clock keeps its even steps. The baker tidies flour with a wide, calm sweep of the brush, then straightens one of the jars on the shelf so that the label faces forward. Light skims the edges of everything. The rounded lip of the mixing bowl, the smooth handle of the kettle, the tiny chip on the ceramic mug that tells a story only in its softened edge. Outside the window, the street lamp holds steady, its glow turning the mist to a drape of pale gold. The night smells faintly of stone rinsed by cool air. Somewhere above the rooftops, a cloud passes, not seen but felt, in the way the moonlight grows slightly softer, then brightens again like a slow pulse. Inside the oven, the first crackles begin, a barely there tapping, like delicate porcelain cooling but warmer, rounder. The loaves lift and open where the blade has invited them, the steam guiding the bloom. The scent that rises is deep and embracing grain, turning to comfort heat, turning to home. The baker stands a little way off and listens, palms open on the edge of the counter, letting the sound arrive, the way one lets sleep arrive without reaching, without haste. The tea has cooled. The last mouthful is smooth and quiet on the tongue, leaving behind a tender brightness that matches the lamplight. The cup is rinsed. Water runs clear over porcelain and drips in a slow rhythm into the sink. A cloth is hung to dry. The handles of the drawers feel familiar under the fingers wood worn to satin by use. When the timer gentle, never sharp murmurs its soft reminder, the door opens again, and the first wave of warmth spills out like a kind thought. The loaves are lifted and placed on wire racks, and the racks give a light musical ping that fades quickly into silence. Steam rises in slender threads and vanishes into the cooler air, carrying a caramel note, a whisper of butter, though no butter touched them. Only the alchemy of grain meeting time. The bakery breathes. The room is the same, and not the same the way a shoreline is the same after one tide and before the next. The glow upon the racks is golden, the shadows beneath them a delicious shade between brown and night. The faint crackle continues for a little while. Tiny voices speaking of warmth becoming memory. And then, even that is quiet. The door beneath the lantern remains closed, and the blue paint keeps its dusting of flour. The alley holds the hush, as if cradling it. The moon moves without urgency, a silvery eyelid over a resting face. In here, the air is warm at the height and cool at the floor. And in between lies a gentle middle where breath is easy and time feels slow. Part 1 ends in this calm bread, cooling in moon-tinged lamplight, the clock whispering its even measure, and the city beyond softened to a tender hum. The night has gathered its quiet, and the bakery has accepted it. The bakery greets a deeper hour with its quiet glow unchanged, though the warmth has shifted. The first loaves cool on their wire cradles, giving off a last delicate crackle that comes and goes like a small tide in a sheltered cove. The lamplight holds steady, soft, and amber breathing across the counters and catching motes of flour that drift with unhurried grace. Near the door, the blue paint keeps a dusting of white along the edges, as if night itself has brushed the frame with a patient hand. The sign outside lifts and settles with the gentlest creak, a single note that folds back into silence. A linen cloth is lifted from a bowl, and a second dough, pale and dappled with seeds, shows the imprint of the fabric's weave. The scent that rises is tender and green, as though a field in early morning had wandered indoors and learned the language of yeast. The baker's hands, warm and lightly floured, cradle the dough and let it rest upon the bench. The wood responds with its familiar warmth, faintly sweet from the day's work. The grains smooth where years have turned edges into satin. A breath is taken. The room seems to breathe, also slow, even content. On a nearby tray, a row of small pastry shells wait their edges, scalloped like quiet waves at low tide. Butter clings to the air in a whisper, not heavy but kind. And something bright flickers at the edge of scent, a citrus thread that promises clarity without waking the hour. The baker reaches for a glass jar of sugar. In the lamplight, crystals sparkle with a soft, pale fire. When the lid lifts, metal touches glass with a gentle click. And then sugar falls, a careful measure light and sifting a hush that lingers as dust glows in a narrow beam. The kettle murmurs again, this time a little cooler, and a second cup receives water tinted by cardamom, crushed under mortar earlier in the evening. The steam that rises carries the warm, breathy sweetness of the spice round almost floral, and it curls upward in a pale ribbon that disappears into the larger hush. A spoon turns with unhurried circles. Porcelain taps softly against metal. When the spoon is set down, the handle leaves a cool crescent on the skin, and the tea settles to a mild glow that warms the chest without asking anything in return. Outside the door, beneath the lantern, the alley is a velvet corridor. The stone smells clean, as if the night itself has washed the world. The lantern throws its pool of gentled gold across the threshold, and through the glass the street shows as a soft watercolor, a suggestion of brick, a sliver of roof line, the stillness of a window with its curtain pulled to one side as if to listen. The door's brass handle gleams in a curve slightly worn in the place where hands have often found it. A single moth, pale and small, settles near the lantern's crown, its wings still as though caught in a quiet thought. Back at the workbench, the baker dusts the surface and draws the second dough into shape. The bench scraper makes a faint silver sound as it slices. The dough yields without complaint, the cut clean and kind. Pieces are turned and tucked seams gently sealed with the pad of a thumb. Seeds fall from the baker's palm in a small rain flax, whispering like dry grass sesame, speaking in tiny sandy notes, poppy quiet as ink. Each oval is set on parchment, whose crisp crinkle suggests turning pages in a story nearly finished. The room carries the mild, nutty perfume of the seeds, and the wooden peel leaned against the wall smells faintly of toasted grain from other nights. In the far corner, jars huddle together cinnamon, nutmeg, a thread of vanilla in a dark bottle. The baker reaches for the vanilla and tilts it. The aroma, once uncorked, is deep and tender. A warm echo of gardens at dusk. Across the counter, a small pot waits with milk, glowing pale beneath the light. The vanilla meets it and disappears. The milk warms with a fine skin of steam at its edge, and the scent that drifts out is gentle enough to be called a memory. A wooden spoon slides through the surface in a slow path, and the pot answers with a soft, contented hush. Another bowl receives softened butter, its texture like quiet silk. Sugar follows then, a breath of citrus zest, lemon and orange in a modest duet. The baker's whisk begins its shy music wires, cutting through the mixture with a sound like whispering cloth. Butter loosens sugar, softens, zest blooms. The color grows faintly brighter, a muted sunlight held within walls, the color of cream and ash. When an egg slips in the bowl, warms in the hand, and the mixture turns smooth, with a satin sheen that reflects the lamp's low flame. In the pastry shells, a spoon leaves pools of custard scented with that breath of vanilla. The custard settles with a soft quiver, then stills. The shells cradle it as if listening for a lullaby. A brush passes over the edges with milk, 1, 2, 3 strokes that make a quiet papery sound against baked dough. The tray enters the oven as if into a kind embrace, and the door closes with an exhale that smooths the air. At once, the oven changes its voice a little brighter, a little more awake, though still never loud. Heat gathers. A faint, sweet perfume begins to lift from behind the glass, the sort that draws the mind further inward and makes stillness feel even softer. At the counter again, the baker turns to a different patient, work plaiting strands of dough glazed with honey, warmed until it flows like pale amber. Fingers divide the braid with care, keeping the strands even as lullabies. The dough's surface is cool but pliant. The honey's touch adds a light tack that yields easily under a dusting of flour. Each crossing is meditative. The pattern grows with a calm inevitability like moon phases written in bread. When the braid is complete, it rests on parchment, and a handful of pearl sugar falls along its crest with small crystalline sounds. The braid returns the favor by simply existing, a quiet architecture that expresses balance. The clock ticks, then ticks again. The drip from the washed spoon at the sink slows to a stop. The room settles into a deeper patience, which is not a void but a fullness, the way a held note feels in the body when it fades. The baker wipes the bench, and the cloth damp and cool leaves a darker trace. That light winches away grain by grain. Near the window, a narrow shelf holds a vase with a sprig of rosemary. Its scent is green and pine bright, a small clarity that threads through butter and sugar without breaking any spell. The first tray returns from the oven, blinking with gentle shine custard, set to a trembling calm under a translucent glaze. The pastry shells speak in the tiniest crackles, where their edges meet cooling air, the sound like mice writing poems with fine pens. Steam rises and disappears around the tray, carrying a sweetness that recalls kitchens from long ago. Though no memory requires a name to be whole, the rack accepts the tray and gives that light, polite ping of metal meeting metal a little bell to mark the hour's kindness. Near the door, the blue paint has deepened where lamplight kisses it. The brass handle holds a small bloom of warmth from an earlier touch, though it is cool now at the far edge. The door's threshold smells gently of old wood beeswax from a polish used faithfully and flour that has sifted there over years in a harmless drift. The lantern outside breathes, and the shadow it throws is soft enough to be called a thought. The baker returns to the seeded loaves now ready. A blade guides their future into simple lines, a single slash that will open like a leaf, a cross that will bloom to a whisper of flower. The oven receives them, and steam is offered again in a small cloud that sounds like a sigh against warm stone. The baker closes the door, and the glass blooms with faint fog before turning clear. The heat's low hum gathers its small chorus, a round tone that sits beneath the tick of the clock like a gentle drone. While the loaves find their gold, a saucepan waits with pears sliced thin as pages. They slide into a shallow pool of water with sugar and a shadow of cardamom, and they make the quietest sound, like silk laid gently on silk. The pears begin to turn translucent at the edges. Their scent rises, clean, sweet, ghostly, and joins the room's other voices. A spoon dips and lifts, leaving a narrow arc that brightens then fades as the surface smooths itself back to stillness. The baker sets a lattice of these pale slices over a small tart shell and paints the fruit with a veil of glaze that catches the light like dew at dawn. The seeded loaves are ready before the glaze dries. They come out wearing warm browns and soft matte golds. Seed-speckled crusts ring with a faint music when knuckles tap them, a note too gentle to wake anything that wishes to sleep. As they rest, the air changes again, turning rounder and fuller, as if an invisible bowl in the room had just been filled with comfort. The wire racks hold their warmth like open hands. Steam walks away in slender threads and loses itself in the larger quiet. The baker pauses, palms on the bench, and lets stillness pass through. in the reflection on the polished metal of the mixing bowl. The lamplight appears as a small sun oval, tender, steady. The mind softens around ordinary truths. Grain and time, heat and patience, hand and intention. There is a peace in work that expects nothing more than presence. A mercy in rhythms that ask only to be followed. Even the smallest act, straightening the edge of parchment, turning a handle until its shape meets the palm, becomes enough. Cupboards murmur under touch as a tin is opened. Inside, a handful of candied orange peel glows with softened brightness. Each strip is lifted and placed on a cloth to dry a moment more. Its scent, warm and clear, illuminates the air the way moonlight illuminates quiet water, not by glare, but by nearness. A thin knife cuts the peel into smaller gems that will later sparkle atop a simple cake. The blade whispers against the board. The board answers with a muted, woody thrum. In the lull between trays, the baker sets a fresh sheet of parchment upon a cooling rack and sifts over it a fine snow of powdered sugar. The sugar falls with playful gravity and rests like frost. A sponge cake, light as breath, is turned out from its pan, and the parchment gives a crisp reply as the cake's edge releases. The sponge still holds a whisper of oven-tender warmth held in its crumb. When a fingertip touches it, the surface yields and returns like a thought remembered, then gently set down. The door beneath the lantern remains closed. Still, it feels companionable, as if it too shares in this steady ritual, a friend that keeps watch. The glass panes hum with a low, continuous coolness, the kind that brings clarity without shiver. Beyond, the alley darkens by a degree as a cloud drifts across the moon. Then the light returns, silver and forgiving. The moth lifts its wings and shifts an inch, a tiny adjustment back to calm. With the last custards arranged in a neat gleaming row, the baker brushes the counter once more. The bristles make a dry, soothing sound. Flour gathers, then leaves the bench, showing its lines like rings in a gentle tree. A damp cloth follows, and the scent of clean water, simple, almost invisible, mingles with vanilla's breath and the remaining trace of cardamom. The clock's hands move forward together, unafraid of the next small change. A braid is moved slightly so that its shadow lies even. The napkin beneath the tart is smoothed until the fabric's weave becomes a soft geography under the palm. The hour closes with all things resting. Pastries in their quiet order, loaves cooling towards silence. Custards holding a tender shine, and the door beneath the lantern keeping the night's softness at the threshold. The bakery feels like a living hearth of breath and light. Even the corners hum with belonging. In this sanctuary, warmth and coolness meet like old friends, one in the height, one along the floor, and the middle is the perfect place for thought to loosen and drift. Part 2 ends in the hush of these small blessings. Seed and sugar steam and lamplight, a brass handle gleaming like a moon caught in wood. Nothing asks for more than it is. Nothing is less. The room, the bread, the hour, all of it moves toward rest. The night deepens, but the bakery glows on a small constellation of golden lamps, scattered across flour-dusted counters and shelves lined with glass jars. Outside, the alley has become a river of silver blue shadow, so still that even time seems hesitant to flow. Within, warmth gathers itself in quiet folds, settling into corners, softening every edge of wood and stone. The scent of baked bread, of milk and honey and faintly toasted seeds lingers like a familiar lullaby that refuses to fade. The baker moves slowly, not from weariness, but reverence. Every sound has a softness to it. The tender thud of a tray set down, the sigh of parchment, the muted knock of a spoon against ceramic. From the oven comes a low hum, the sound of steady flame, a patient whisper that has burned through countless midnights before this one. A round loaf sits near the front, its crust golden, its center still faintly breathing warmth. When the baker presses a fingertip gently to its edge, the sound is the smallest crackle, a reply both fragile and alive. A knife slides through with reverence. The crust gives way in a sigh, revealing a cloud-like crumb, fragrant and soft. Steam rises, slow, ghostly kind, carrying with it a mingling of scents, nutty grain, faint caramel, a trace of vanilla. It smells not of hunger, but of homecoming, as though the air itself has remembered something essential. The baker lays the slice on a wooden board. Butter, kept in a small earthen dish, waits with patient sheen. It softens instantly upon contact, leaving behind a tender shimmer that soaks into the bread's warm heart. There is no haste, only gratitude in the act, a simple communion between hand bread and the silence that holds them. At the far counter, a jar of honey catches the lamplight. The glass glows faintly amber, its contents thick and slow-moving. When opened, it releases the scent of wildflowers and warm earth, a sweetness that seems older than language. The spoon dips in. Honey folds upon itself, dense and golden, then falls in a steady thread over the bread, gathering into small pools that gleam like captured dusk. The baker tilts the board slightly, watching it glisten, then sets it down again with care, as if returning something precious to its rightful place. Beyond the window, the moon hovers higher now, no longer shy, but round and lucid, a pale companion to the oven's heart. Its reflection touches the glass jars on the shelf, turning sugar into frost and flour into fog. Between the two lights, one golden, one silver, the bakery breathes in balance, warm and cool, earth and sky, effort and ease. The baker pours a cup of warm milk, stirring in a few drops of vanilla. The aroma is delicate, sweetened by memory. As the cup is lifted, the steam curls like a sigh into the lamplight, and for a moment, it feels as though the room itself inhales. The first sip is quiet warmth meeting warmth, and in that silence, the night becomes a single, endless heartbeat. On a nearby stool, a folded linen apron rests its threads, faintly scented with flour and smoke. The baker brushes it once with the hand, smoothing a wrinkle, as though it were a page that deserved to be reread. There is a rhythm to everything here, to folding, stirring, waiting, listening. A rhythm that does not rush toward completion, but honors the pause between moments, the invisible measure of peace that lives in stillness. At the far end of the counter, a loaf, still in its tin, hums faintly as it cools. The air around it shimmers with residual heat, the faintest mirage of comfort. The baker leans closer and listens not for any message, but for the music of transformation itself. The crust tightens, then relaxes. The sound is delicate, like porcelain settling after being fired. The clock ticks. The second hand moves with grace, unhurried and serene. Its rhythm joins the low song of the oven, the distant hush of the street, the faint rustle of linen. All of it gathers into a harmony of small, gentle sounds, the language of a night that asks for nothing but presence. A bowl of cooling custard sits nearby its surface, glazed in a sheen that reflects the light like still water. The baker traces the rim once with the back of a spoon. The metal cooled, the texture smooth as glass. The spoon dips in, and the custard yields soundlessly, rich and silken. The scent of vanilla mingles with that of warm milk, blending into the room's soft perfume of sweetness and calm. In the corner, the old oven gives a single low sigh as the flame softens. The metal contracts in the chill that seeps around the edges of the window. The change is almost imperceptible, a breath, a turning of tone. Warmth recedes, but it leaves tenderness behind, the way a candle leaves a trace of smoke that feels like light remembering itself. The baker closes the oven door with care fingers, lingering on the handle until the echo fades. The air cools by a degree. The scent of baked sugar remains hovering above the counters, sweet and low. Somewhere near the window, A curtain stirs, barely, but enough to suggest the gentlest night breeze has found its way in. It carries the smell of rain-washed stone of the city breathing in its sleep. The baker pauses, listening. In that soundless hour, it feels as though the entire world is holding its breath, just to let this small room keep glowing. The baker lights a single candle on the counter. The match's strike is brief, a dry hiss, then the bloom of flame. The wick catches steadies, and soon the candle's flame sways with the slow grace of a sigh. Its glow mingles with the lamp's amber pool, softening every shadow into velvet. On the walls, faint shapes of jars and loaves waver like dreams half remembered. The tea is poured again this time, chamomile pale as moonlight in its porcelain cup. Its aroma unfurls through the warmth of the bakery, honeyed, earthy, faintly floral. A sip invites quiet reflection, not thought exactly, but awareness of how every moment has its own slow unfolding, how even stillness can bloom. The baker glances at the rows of bread, cooling at the pastries, gleaming under their light dusting of sugar. Each carries its own memory of warmth. Each will give that warmth again when morning comes. The idea brings a soft smile that needs no reason. From beyond the door comes the smallest sound, not a knock, but a shift of air as the breeze brushes past the lantern. The flame outside wavers once and steadies. Through the glass, the alley appears gentler now, bathed in pale moonlight and the faint gold from within. It feels like a threshold between two kinds of peace, the sleep of the city and the wakefulness of this small sanctuary. The baker returns to the counter, wiping down the surface in slow circular motions. The rag is damp, cool against the fingers. Each stroke gathers faint traces of flour and sugar, leaving behind smooth wood that gleams softly under the lamp. It is not cleaning as task, it is devotion as rhythm, the world being put gently to rest. A final loaf is drawn from its tin. The crust is dark, slightly crackled, smelling faintly of molasses and oak. The baker turns it over, tapping once. The sound is hollow and full, the sound of completion. The loaf is placed beside the others, each one still radiating faint warmth into the room. For a moment, nothing moves. The only sound is the gentle ticking of the clock and the distant murmur of the city's dreams. In this space, time loses its edges, everything softens. The bread, the air, the light, all of it seems to float between breath and stillness. The heart of the oven, though dimmed, continues to pulse through the room, a warmth that exists now more in memory than in flame. The baker unties the linen apron and folds it neatly on the stool. The motion is slow, ceremonial. The fabric carries the story of the night flower, traces a faint patch of sugar dust, a small tear at the hem. Each mark feels honest, earned. It is not imperfection. It is proof of care. Outside, the moon edges past a thin cloud, its light pouring through the window to rest on the cooling loaves. They glow faintly in its silver gaze, steam still curling from their crusts in thin, invisible ribbons. In the dim reflection, the baker's face appears softened, not tired, but tranquil, as though bathed in the same peace the room has gathered. The flame on the candle bends, then steadies again. The baker's eyes rest on it for a long time, following the gentle dance of light that flickers over the counter, across the handles of the drawers, along the edge of the sink. In that wavering brightness lies something eternal warmth that asks for nothing, light that simply exists because it can. The night breathes, the oven hums low, the bread cools, the candle burns, and in the stillness between them, that small golden pause, the world feels complete. The hour leans toward its quietest point. Outside the alley lies still beneath the pale sweep of moonlight, its stones glazed with silver, its corners softened by mist. A single lantern flickers faintly in the breeze, its glow stretching long and low across the cobblestones. Beyond the window glass, the night has taken on a texture of velvet hush, cool, slow, and unbroken. Inside the bakery remains awake, but only in the way embers stay alive after the fire. The warmth is gentle now, wrapped around the air like a soft blanket. The clock ticks with tender patience, each second falling like a drop of honey into still water. The scent of baked bread and cooling sugar lingers as memory, not urgent but infinite. The baker moves through the golden hush with quiet purpose. There is no hurry here. Each motion feels like a word in a whispered prayer. On the counter rests a board of smooth maple, its surface lightly dusted with flour. A cloth, damp and folded neatly, waits beside it. The baker lifts it and wipes the board once, then again. Slow arcs that catch the soft lamplight in their curve. The flour lifts and the wood gleams clean and calm. A mixing bowl stands ready round silver, reflecting the faint glow of the lamps like a small captured moon. Into it, sugar drifts in a silent snowfall. Butter follows pale, supple, fragrant. The sound it makes as it meets the bowl is soft and heavy, like the sigh of something warm finding rest. The baker adds a spoonful of milk, a pinch of salt that glitters for a moment before dissolving, and finally flour that falls through a fine sieve. A quiet rain of white that settles evenly across the surface. The whisk begins its slow dance. Metal whispers against metal, the rhythm patient, circular. The ingredients fold into one another until their edges blur, and soon the mixture turns smooth and luminous, reflecting the light in faint ripples. When the baker lifts the whisk, the batter drips in ribbons that fall and disappear into themselves, each drop a small act of grace. In a shallow pan nearby, apples wait, peeled, sliced, resting in their own cool breath. The air carries the faint brightness of fruit and sugar, a scent that stirs memory without waking it. A splash of lemon joins its tang, softened by warmth. When the apples meet the heat of the pan, they release a quiet sigh, a sound halfway between sweetness and sleep. Steam curls upward, thin and white, drifting through lamplight like a thought not yet spoken. The baker stirs with a wooden spoon. The bowl in one hand, the spoon in the other is, moving with effortless rhythm. The apples turn translucent at their edges, softening but holding firm, their skins curling slightly like petals at the edge of bloom. Butter melts into them, carrying cinnamon and sugar along its path. The scent deepens, golden, round, and soothing, filling every corner until the air tastes of calm. On the counter, pastry dough lies beneath a sheet of linen. When uncovered, its surface gleams faintly with flour's pale dust. The baker rolls it out smooth, even strokes that spread from center to edge, until the dough becomes a delicate sheet, thin enough for light to pass through. The rolling pin makes a low wooden murmur. The flour sighs as it moves under pressure. Each motion is unhurried, circular, whole. The dough lifts easily under the baker's hands. It folds in half, then quarters, then unfurls again onto a waiting dish. The apples are spooned in their sweetness, shining in the lamplight, their steam rising in graceful spirals. The scent now carries through the entire bakery butter spice fruit warmth. The baker brushes the crust with milk. The bristles whisper, leaving a soft sheen behind. Sugar falls over the top in fine rain, and for a moment, the pie seems to shimmer as though dusted with moonlight. The oven door opens. A breath of warmth escapes, rich and steady, full of patient fire. The pie enters its glow. The door closes with a muffled hum, and the baker stands for a moment, hand resting lightly against the handle. Through the small window, the crust begins to rise, edges turning golden where light meets heat. The hum of the oven deepens a single, continuous note of comfort. The baker steps away and begins another quiet ritual, polishing the glass jars on the shelf. One by one, they are lifted, wiped, and set down again. The cloth moves in slow, steady circles, drawing faint halos in the air where scent lingers. Sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, vanilla, each jar releases a breath of its own, joining the room's perfume in soft harmony. The sound is the same each time, glass touching wood with a delicate click, like a sentence finding its period. When the jars are done, the baker opens the window a little. Cool air slips inside a tender balance to the oven's warmth. It brings with it the scent of rain-damp stone and distant earth, the smell of the world sleeping. The curtains tremble once, then fall still again. Outside, the lantern glows like a heartbeat against the dark. The cat that wandered the alley earlier has curled upon a doorstep nearby, its fur rising and falling in time with the ticking clock. The baker wipes their hands on a clean towel, then leans lightly against the counter, eyes half closed. In the soft mingling of air and warmth, the mind drifts not away but inward to that quiet place where thoughts become texture. The rhythm of the whisk, the sound of butter meeting flour, the sigh of apples in heat, all replay gently behind the eyelids, a melody made not of sound but of care. The pie begins to sing. It's a tender crackling, a murmuring from within the oven as the crust lifts and settles. A bubble of syrup escapes hissing softly against the edge of the pan. The baker listens. There is no need to rush, no call, to adjust or correct, only to witness. Even in its smallest act, creation carries a quiet intelligence of its own. The aroma grows deeper, buttery spiced, golden. It weaves through the air like silk through fingers, binding the present to the eternal. The baker pours water into a small clay cup and places it near the open window, letting moonlight touch its surface. The water glows faintly, reflecting the faint quiver of the candle's flame. For a moment, it feels as though time has stopped breathing altogether, leaving only warmth, scent, and silver light to fill the world. The oven hums its final note low and tender. The pie is ready. The door opens, and a rush of fragrant air flows out, warmer than skin, but kind as embrace. The crust glows bronze and dappled with sugar. A trail of steam curls into the quiet room before dissolving, leaving sweetness behind. The baker sets the pie on a rack. Metal sings in soft, bright pings that fade one by one. The window breathes again. The night enters gently curious, but never cold. Moonlight slips along the surface of the pie, across the counter, over the cooling loaves, and finally rests on the baker's hands. Hands that have shaped warmth into form, light into flavor, silence into rhythm. Those hands fold now in stillness. The story of the night continues, but more slowly, in cooling air, in quiet satisfaction, in the space where effort becomes rest. The baker's gaze lingers on the pie, not as a task completed, but as a moment, simply existing, full, fragrant, serene. The hour holds steady, poised between darkness and dawn. The lantern outside sways once in the faintest wind, casting its glow across the blue door. Inside, the candle burns lower, its light dances across flour specks and glass jars, making small galaxies of every mote. The clock continues patient as breathing. Everything within the bakery has become part of one slow, luminous pulse. The whisper of craft, the heartbeat of warmth, the soft rustle of linen, the quiet blessing of night. The night has settled into its deepest stillness. Outside the alley lies beneath a wash of moonlight, so soft it feels poured rather than cast. The lantern above the door burns lower now, its golden circle smaller, its flames swaying in the cool hush that drifts down from unseen rooftops. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of rain-soaked stone and faint sweetness from the bakery's open window. Inside, warmth lingers, not the active heat of work, but the tender, lingering breath that remains after creation is complete. The oven has grown quiet, its hum replaced by the delicate sounds of cooling, the tick of metal, the soft sigh of contracting wood, the whisper of steam rising and vanishing into air. Every surface holds the story of what has just been faint trails of flour, a brush of sugar dust, the sheen of butter in the lamplight. The pie rests on the wire rack, its crust a landscape of bronze and gold. Steam curls upward in thin spirals, slow and transparent like smoke from a dream just fading. The air is sweet with apple and spice, but gentler now, no longer thick with promise, only contentment. Near it, the cooling loaves give their soft music of rest, the tender crackle that sounds like the world whispering itself to sleep. The baker stands quietly nearby, hands resting on the counter's edge. The wood is cool beneath the palms, smooth and honest. For a moment, the baker closes their eyes, listening not for any sound, but for silence itself, the rich, layered quiet that holds the ticking clock, the distant sigh of wind, and the subtle murmur of breath. When the eyes open again, the moon has shifted higher, spilling through the window pane in a stripe of liquid silver. It stretches across the counter, brushing the pie's crust, the rack, the spoon left resting nearby. The light and shadow mingle in soft harmony, gold from the lamps, silver from the moon, each completing the other. The room feels suspended in that tender balance, half warm, half cool, entirely at peace. A small bowl of cream waits near the edge of the table. The baker lifts it and begins to stir, slow, deliberate, without sound. The whisk turns in circles, the cream thickening into soft peaks that hold their shape like clouds caught in still air. The movement is hypnotic, rhythmic, not work, but meditation. When it is finished, the spoon drips a pale ribbon across the pie's edge. The cream melts into the warmth, sliding in smooth lines that fade into sheen. A second candle is lit smaller, with a wick that burns clean and blue at its heart. Its glow flickers against the window glass, and the reflection seems almost like another world, one where the bakery exists in reverse, faint and shining, still and infinite. The flame moves gently, as though breathing with the rhythm of the clock. Outside, the city is silent except for the faint echo of water somewhere. Perhaps a gutter, perhaps a distant fountain, a sound as old as night itself. The moon paints the rooftops pale and dreamlike. Shadows stretch long and soft, but none are sharp enough to disturb the peace. The baker lifts a slice of the pie and places it on a small white plate. The crust flakes delicately beneath the knife, the filling gleaming like amber beneath its shell. Steam drifts upward again, meeting the cool air midway before fading into nothingness. The aroma, apples, butter spice, and faint caramel weaves through the room in one continuous thread. A fork touches the plate with the gentlest ring of porcelain, then sinks into the softness. The first bite is taken not for hunger, but for the ritual of it, the meeting of sweetness and silence. The taste is simple, layered, complete. The pie is warm at the core, cool at the edge, alive with contrast. For a brief moment, everything in the world seems to pause to witness that single bite. Even the clock hesitates before its next tick. The baker sets the fork down. The candle flame bends again, whispering across the silvered surface of the spoon. Shadows stretch over the loaves and pastries. The racks shine faintly, their lines glimmering like starlight trapped in steel. The air, touched by steam, feels tender, moist, fragrant, and slow-moving as if it too were resting. A linen towel hangs from a nearby hook. The baker lifts it, folds it once, then lays it over the remaining pie. The gesture feels like a benediction, as though tucking it into sleep. The scent of cinnamon lingers just beneath the cloth, faint and enduring. The pie will cool through the night, its warmth passing gradually into the air, its sweetness absorbed by silence. The baker begins to tidy, moving with unthinking grace. A spoon rinsed under cool water, a bowl wiped clean and left to dry. The sound of cloth meeting porcelain is barely audible, a slow, calming rhythm. Each small action feels like part of a larger stillness, as though the room itself guides the motions. The wooden floor, worn smooth by years, creaks softly underfoot. Its sound joins the clock's steady pulse. The faint drip of water, the whisper of wind through the half-open window. Together, they create a music made only for night one, that needs no melody, no beginning or end. The baker pauses beside the window. Outside, the moon has risen higher, white and whole, suspended like a thought that will not fade. The alley glows faintly beneath it, each stone reflecting a touch of frost. The lantern sways its circle of light, breathing in and out like a heartbeat. And there, across that soft border of glass, the baker sees their own reflection mingled with the world beyond a figure, surrounded by gold and silver warmth and stillness, bread and moonlight. A hand reaches out, resting lightly against the pane. The cool glass meets the warmth of skin, and for an instant, it feels as if the barrier between inside and outside dissolves. The bakery and the night merge, two halves of the same dream. The smell of fruit and flower meets the scent of rain and stone. The soft hum of warmth joins the cool silence of the street. The baker lowers the hand and closes the window gently. The latch clicks a small clear sound that settles the world into place. The curtains draw together, diffusing the moonlight into a hazy glow. Shadows soften further. The air turns golden again. The final act of the hour begins the laying of quiet to rest. The broom's soft bristles whisper over the tiles, gathering the last traces of flour into a delicate spiral. The motion is unhurried, rhythmic, complete. Each sweep leaves behind not emptiness, but clarity, as though the night itself has been brushed smooth. The candle flickers once more. Its flame bends low, then steadies small and faithful. Around it, the air glows with the warmth of what has been made bread by patience, peace. Above it, the clock's ticking sounds fainter now, more like the echo of a heartbeat remembered through layers of calm. Outside, the silver light continues to fall across the sleeping world. Steam still rises faintly from the cooling rack, though slower now, thinner, almost transparent. It curls upward one last time, catches the moonlight through the window's veil, and disappears into the air, the final exhale of the night's creation. And then silence deepens. The bakery, the city, the moon all rest together in a single breathless harmony. The moon hangs at its highest pale and watchful, its light falling like soft frost over rooftops and sleeping windows. In the alley, silence has grown thick, a silence so deep it seems to have weight. The lantern's flame has dwindled to a small patient heart of gold, casting only enough glow to mark the blue door of the bakery and the faint outline of its sign swinging ever so slightly in the night breeze. Inside, the warmth is dim but tender, lingering like breath on glass. The oven, once bright with fire, now holds only the memory of heat, a gentle thrum beneath the metal, a low hum that sounds almost alive. The air smells of what once was sugar, turned to caramel flour, transformed by time fruit, cooled into calm sweetness. It's a scent that fills every corner like a benediction, asking nothing but to remain. Oh, the baker moves quietly, almost weightless now. Each step on the wooden floor makes the softest sound, a creak swallowed instantly by stillness. The candle on the counter has burned low, its wick curled into a small arc of ember. Its flame dances close to the edge of rest, flickering only when the faint night air sighs through the cracks. On the racks, the last of the bread lies cool and silent. Its crusts have lost their sheen. The colors deepened into bronze and quiet gold. The loaves no longer speak in crackles. They have grown still, content, complete. A few crumbs glint on the wire beneath the moon's reflection, like tiny stars fallen into shadow. The baker tidies the counter with slow circular motions, brushing away the day's traces. A stray seed, a grain of salt, a curl of lemon zest, all gathered into the open palm and placed gently into a small wooden bowl. There is care in every motion, not because of necessity, but because reverence remains even when the work is done. From a high shelf, a ceramic jar is taken down. Its lid opens with a soft pop, revealing a faint scent of lavender and sugar. The baker takes a pinch and scatters it lightly into the air. The grains drift like pale snow, catching candlelight before falling to the counter's edge. The scent mingles with the fading sweetness of the room, settling into something almost invisible, an aroma one feels rather than smells. Near the window, the cat that had dozed on the doorstep now curls upon the sill inside. It has slipped through when the door was last opened. Its fur, the color of smoke and moonlight, rises and falls in rhythm with sleep. Each breath stirs the air in faint ripples so delicate that even the flower dust seems to lean closer to listen. The baker looks upon the creature and smiles, not in amusement, but recognition. There's something in its stillness, its quiet trust in warmth that mirrors the entire night. The baker lifts a small scrap of bread from the cooling rack and places it beside the cat. The cat stirs, once stretches, and drifts back into its gentle dreaming. A pot of water warms on the stove, not to boil, but simply to hum, a soft murmur of life within the cooling air. Steam rises thin and translucent, tracing slow spirals toward the ceiling beams. The baker sets a mug beside it, adding a spoonful of honey that glows faintly at the bottom like trapped light. When the water is poured, the honey swirls upward, dissolving in slow golden ribbons. The spoon turns once, twice, then rests, leaving the liquid calm and faintly luminous. The cup is carried to the counter by the window. The baker sits, hands encircling the mug, the warmth seeping through porcelain and into skin. The first sip tastes of evening's soft floral sweet with patience. The warmth gathers in the chest and spreads outward, not as heat, but as quiet acceptance. It feels like the same warmth that once filled the oven, not fire, but memory of fire. The candle flickers lower still. Its flame trembles, throws a brief golden arc across the cooling racks, and steadies again. Its light touches the cat's fur, the baker's wrist, the edges of the window pane. Outside, the moonlight meets it halfway, creating a fusion of silver and amber that turns every small object into poetry. The spoon's curved reflection, the faint gleam along the knife's spine, the ripple of melted wax sliding down the candle's side. The baker rises once more, carrying the mug to the sink. The sound of water joining water is soft and rhythmic, like rain far away. The cup is rinsed and placed upside down upon the counter to dry. Drops gather at its rim and slip slowly downward, catching glints of light before disappearing. From the corner of the room comes the slow, measured sound of drawers being closed one by one. Wooden handles touch wood with muted grace. A faint scent of cedar drifts out each time, cool and grounding. The baker's hand lingers briefly on the final drawer, fingers tracing the grain smooth, worn, familiar. It feels like tracing the memory of every night before this one, each gesture carrying into the next like a continuous song sung softly through years. Outside, a breeze moves through the alley. The lantern's light bends, stretching its golden shadow across the door. Leaves rustle faintly. Somewhere beyond sight, a reminder that even in stillness, life continues to turn. The sound reaches the window, gentle as a sigh. The baker returns to the stool near the counter, where the candle flame has shortened into a trembling bead. With a soft breath, it is extinguished. The wisp of smoke rises and twists, blue-gray against the moonlight. It drifts upward, finds the open beam above, and dissolves into nothing. The final visible echo of warmth. Now, the only light comes from the moon itself. Its radiance spills through the window, unhindered, washing over the racks, the counter, the cat, curled in dream. In this silver quiet, the bakery becomes another world, half reflection, half reality. The loaves seem carved from starlight. The bowls shimmer faintly, their shapes dissolving into the glow. The baker leans back, closes their eyes, and listens. The world is reduced to 3 sounds: the faint tick of the clock, the hush of breath, and the distant murmur of the city's heart. A sound so far away, it might be mistaken for the sea. Thoughts drift like flour in a slow current. No beginnings, no endings, only motion and stillness entwined. The day's labors, the warmth, the scent, all fade into one long exhale. The baker feels not tiredness, but release, that soft yielding the night gives when everything has been tended, when nothing more is needed. The cat stirs again. Its paw flexes, its whiskers twitch. A low, steady purr fills the silence. the sound of life continuing without thought, the same sound as breath, as flame as heart. The baker smiles faintly in the half-dark. Outside, the lantern burns one last moment brighter before dimming into sleep. And in the silver quiet that follows, the bakery becomes weightless, a vessel of warmth floating through the stillness. The last glow of the oven carried not in flame, but in the gentle, steady pulse of peace. The hour drifts toward dawn, though the sky has not yet lightened. It is that fragile in-between a moment, balanced perfectly between darkness and renewal, where the world seems to hold its breath before deciding to begin again. Outside, the moon keeps its silent watch suspended high above the sleeping city. Its light spills like milk over the rooftops, gliding across chimneys, slipping through the narrow alley where the bakery nestles. The lantern at the door has long since gone out, but the moonlight replaces it, generous and steady. It paints the blue door in silver, makes the brass handle gleam like the last note of a forgotten song. Inside the bakery glows faintly with the echo of warmth. The oven, now fully cooled, stands quiet and proud, its iron belly breathing the memory of fire. The air is lighter, thinner, somehow no longer dense with steam and scent, but open, calm, still perfumed by sweetness that clings to every surface. On the racks, the loaves rest motionless, bathed in a veil of pale light. They look almost ethereal now, their rough edges softened into curves of quiet gold. The cat remains curled on the window ledge, a small living shadow against the moonlit glass. Its tail flicks once a slow acknowledgement of dreams. Beneath the window, a bowl of water reflects the moon perfectly. A perfect circle of silver floating on a dark surface. The reflection trembles now and then as a soft draft moves through the room, but it never breaks. The baker stands near the counter, hands folded loosely before them. There is no task left to complete, yet something in the posture speaks of gentle purpose, a gratitude that lingers when labor ends. The candle has long gone out, but the moon's reflection has taken its place, washing over the countertop and illuminating the fine dusting of flour still clinging there. It shimmers like stardust, scattered by a patient hand. The clock ticks on the wall, steady, soft, unhurried. Its sound no longer marks time, but becomes part of it, an assurance that rhythm persists even in rest. Each tick joins the faint breathing of the cat, the low hum of distant wind, and the occasional sigh of wood adjusting to the cool air. Together, they compose a song of small continuities, the music of a night nearly done. The baker moves to the window where moonlight spills across the sill. Outside, the alley gleams faintly, as though washed clean by silence. The buildings on either side rise like gentle sentinels, their windows reflecting faint traces of stars. A few petals, perhaps from some unseen balcony garden, drift down through the air and land soundlessly on the cobblestones. One catches on the corner of the door, clinging their soft pink against weathered blue. Inside, the light touches everything with equal tenderness. The rack of pastries glistening faintly under their dusting of sugar, the polished jars reflecting curves of brightness, the cup turned upside down on the counter to dry the wooden surfaces breathe with a low sheen, each knot and grain marked in quiet relief. The shadows are softer now, nearly transparent. Even the darkness seems to have lost its edges, melting into the light like ink diluted by water. The baker leans against the window frame, eyes lifted to the night sky. There is no exhaustion, only stillness, deep and kind. The mind drifts unanchored, yet at ease. Thoughts dissolve into sensory traces. The memory of kneading dough beneath the palms, the scent of cinnamon lifting through the air, the faint heat on the skin from standing close to the oven. All these linger not as recollection, but as texture parts of the body, parts of the quiet. The moon glows brighter for a moment, cutting through a wisp of cloud. Its light catches on the loaves again, and they seem to breathe as though the warmth trapped inside them has turned to light. Steam no longer rises, but the scent remains warm, crust, softened fruit, and a ghost of sugar in the air. It feels alive, as though the night itself is exhaling through bread. The baker turns toward the shelves, where a row of old notebooks sits tucked among jars and tins. The covers are worn, their edges softened by time and touch. The baker opens one at random, the pages filled with faded handwriting lists of recipes, small notes about temperature and texture. Moments of discovery, written in brief phrases, more time than heat. Listen, for the crackle patience brings sweetness. The pages flutter gently in the draft from the window, a paper sigh that joins the rhythm of the room. The baker smiles, closing the book with care, the gesture as light as an exhale. On the cover, a single fingerprint of flour remains glowing white under the moon. At the counter, once more, the baker lays a cloth over the remaining loaves. The linen falls in smooth waves, catching the light like ripples on still water. It is not concealment, it is continuation. The bread will sleep, and with it, the bakery will dream. The cat stretches, uncurls, and leaps silently to the floor. Its paws make no sound on the wood, only the faintest suggestion of motion. It moves between the shadows with an ease that seems rehearsed, then slips toward the door. The baker watches as it pauses, glances back once, and disappears through the narrow gap at the bottom, vanishing into the silver outside. For a moment, The door's frame glows brighter where the moon catches the edge of it. Then the alley returns to stillness. The baker's reflection in the window merges with the outside light until the two are indistinguishable, human and night becoming one slow shared breath. The air cools another degree. The scent of bread thins to a trace like perfume remembered on skin. The sound of the clock seems softer now, less a mark of time and more a lullaby guiding the world toward dawn. The baker takes one final look around at the racks, the counters, the shelves, the oven, each a small constellation within this universe of calm. Every object carries a faint story of warmth. Every shadow hums with peace. Stepping toward the center of the room, the baker lowers the gas lamp's flame. The light contracts, folding inward until only moonlight remains. It fills the space gently enough to make the darkness visible enough to leave everything in perfect balance. The world feels infinite and contained at once. The bakery, the moon, the slow-turning night, each holding the other in luminous stillness. The night stands perfectly still, neither young nor old, only eternal in its silence. Moonlight has softened into mist, the sky paling by a whisper's width. The first breath of dawn has not yet come, yet the world feels poised at its edge, holding the tender hush that comes before renewal. Inside the bakery slumbers. Every corner hums with the residue of warmth, not heat, but presence. The racks gleam faintly beneath the linen cloths. The oven rests like an ancient heart, finally at peace. The air carries the faintest trace of sweetness, honeyed and low folded into the cool. The blue door stands closed beneath its quiet coat of flour dust, and the brass handle glows faintly where the lantern once shone. The baker sits at the stool near the counter body, still mind drifting in the soft fog of near sleep. Hands rest open upon the knees, palms turned upward as if cupping the invisible air. The eyes are half closed, the breath long and slow. This is not restlessness, but surrender, the final unraveling of wakefulness into something wider, quieter, whole. The cat has returned. It slips through the door with the subtle grace of something that has always known the night. Its fur, brushed by moonlight, looks almost translucent. It moves through the room like a ripple through water, silent and certain, and leaps softly onto the counter. There it settles, curling into the hollow of a folded towel, becoming part of the stillness it has entered. The baker opens their eyes once more, gaze tracing the familiar shapes, jars, cups, a kettle, sleeping in its reflection of the moon. Everything feels both near and infinite. The candle, now only a small curve of wax, has hardened into quiet sculpture. The shadow it once cast remains faintly visible On the wall, a ghost of light preserved by habit. Beyond the window, the moon begins its slow descent. Its silver fades to pale ivory, and the stars retreat one by one, folding into the paling blue of morning. The world outside stirs gently. Somewhere far away, a single bird wakes and offers the first uncertain note of dawn. It is soft and pure, the kind of sound that enters not through the ear, but through the skin. The bakery seems to inhale it. The baker rises and crosses the floor, footsteps bare and soundless. Each step stirs the air, and in the air floats memory. The scent of dough rising, the whisper of flour brushed from a sleeve, the rhythm of kneading that shaped the night's quiet music. The baker moves to the door and unlocks it. The click as delicate as a sigh. When the door opens, the outside air flows in cool and tender. It carries the scent of the street damp, stone night's last chill, and something faintly green like dew on leaves. The warmth within the bakery meets it, and the two mingle in a brief, wordless greeting. The moonlight spills across the threshold, silver on stone, gold on wood. The baker stands in the doorway and looks out. Their alley glows faintly, its cobblestones glazed in pearl. The city beyond is still dreaming, windows, dim rooftops, quiet. The world wrapped in the same peace that has cradled this small room all night long. Time seems to hover suspended between what has been made and what has yet to begin. The breath that leaves the baker's lips joins the cool air visible for a moment before disappearing into dawn. Behind the cat lifts its head, eyes reflecting a glint of gold. The baker smiles a small unspoken promise and closes the door once more. Inside the bakery exhales. Its breath is the soft creak of wood settling, the faint hush of linen shifting as the air cools. The scent of bread deepens into something dreamlike, no longer a presence, but an atmosphere, a gentle haze of memory. The racks, the jars, the utensils, the stool, all seem to have absorbed the night's peace, storing it as warmth hidden in their quiet forms. The baker moves through the room one last time, fingertips brushing the countertop as if to bless it. The light has changed. Where once it was silver, now it carries a faint hint of rose. Shadows fade. The edges of objects begin to soften, dissolving into one another as though the bakery itself is slipping into sleep. At the window, the bowl of water still mirrors the moon's reflection, but it is faint now, wavering, ready to give itself back to light. The cat stretches, yawns soundlessly, and leaps down. It disappears into the back room where the warmth still lingers, a quiet guardian returning to dream. The baker pauses near the racks of bread, lifting one loaf, feeling its weight, substantial, yet soft, still cool from its slow communion with air. For a moment, the baker holds it close, the way one might hold a thought they wish never to forget. Then it is set gently back down, and the touch lingers in the air like a closing phrase. The clock continues its quiet, faithful rhythm. Each tick is slower now, as if even time has learned to rest. The baker lowers the lamp's shade, leaving only the faint light that filters from the window. The night folds inward one last time, and all becomes a dream of stillness. Outside, the moon fades fully into the pale horizon. The alley glimmers with the early breath of morning, the kind that carries promise but asks nothing in return. Within the bakery, the final traces of warmth drift upward, invisible until they blend with the day's first light. And somewhere between that fading glow and the new sky, the bakery begins to dream. It dreams of soft hands, kneading dough beneath lamplight of loaves, rising in the quiet rhythm of patience of sugar, melting into gold of breath, turning to steam of the moon, pausing at the window to listen. It dreams not in words, but in warmth, the kind that never truly fades. Outside, the first bird calls again. The note hangs in the air, clear and kind. And inside, beneath the linen cloths, the bread sleeps, the air rests, and the world for one still shining moment is utterly at peace. The story is now complete. Sleep well, dream softly, and may the night hold you kindly.